Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knit California podcast. My name is Leslie. I am Knit California here on YouTube and also over on Instagram and TikTok, and this is episode 35. I am coming at you today with another finished object podcast. You can probably tell what I'm wearing. I also have a couple, one new whip. But I also have a lot of yarn to talk to you about. We've got a lot of yarn things to discuss today. So let's get right into it. I finished my Ranunculus. It's a short sleeve, round yoke slash, it's like actually a combination round yoke slash raglan sweater, but I can talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. This pattern, like I said, the Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. It's a very, very popular pattern on Ravelry. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of projects, and mine is now one of them. The yarn that I used for this is Sorella yarn, her silk DK base in the colorway Pampas? I don't know, you know that like feathery grass? Pampas. And this is one of their summer tonals, and the silk DK base is a summer tonal base. I believe you can only get it in the summer. So if you really like this color, just like wait a couple months, it'll be back. But overall, I'm really happy with this finished object. Let me talk to you about some of the pattern stats specs first. I've got my notes, so that's if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my notes, okay? This pattern is available in 11 sizes, numbers 1 through 11, that correspond with finished bust circumferences 46 inches to 70.75 inches. That's 117 to 180 centimeters. Okay, it doesn't actually say how much positive ease is recommended in the pattern, but based off of like the smallest size and the size range available, like it's a lot. It's like upwards of 10 to 12 inches of positive ease is what's recommended in the pattern. Now, you can probably tell just by the way this is sitting here, I definitely do not have 10 to 12 inches of positive ease. In fact, I knit mine with like 2 inches of positive ease. So the yarn that's recommended in the pattern is actually not just one yarn. It says in the pattern that you can use anywhere from lace weight all the way up to worsted weight, as long as you meet the gauge. The recommended gauge for this pattern is 14 stitches and 20 rows per 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And that is on 6mm needles. Now, 14 stitches per 4 inches is a very, very large gauge. So you need to take that into consideration when you're working on your project. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make that gauge. I did knit this on the recommended 6mm needles, and the interesting thing about this pattern, I think I mentioned in the last episode, is that the top part from the neck all the way through the last circular yoke round is all knit in one size. There is one set of numbers for all of this. Then once you get to the raglan increase part here, it's divided up so that the body and the back and then the sleeves, like that separation is proportional for whatever size that you're making. And then you keep, increasing, doing raglan increases in the pattern that it recommends. It's not always like one increase round, one knit round. It really depends on your size until you get the yoke depth that you need for your size, and then you split for sleeves and continue on from there. So all of that to say, sorry, lost my train of thought there. all of that to say, I actually did not gauge swatch for this project. I started knitting with my 6mm needles, and I knit the whole circular yoke, and I started knitting into the raglans. And once I had a bit of fabric here that I could measure, I measured what my gauge actually was. And where I was measuring, instead of 14 stitches per 4 inches, I was measuring my gauge at 17 stitches per 4 inches. That 3-stitch difference is huge. And what that meant was I needed to do some knitting math in order to figure out how deep and like which size, kind of, which stitch counts I needed to follow in order to get not only a good like depth, but I was really focused on sleeve circumference as well. So I have I would say like slightly larger bicep circumference, I think, compared to just like the general sizing standards. So that's really what I focused on, was to make sure that I would have a good sleeve circumference, and also that it, you know, would fit my bust circumference as well. But I knew that I would hit that measurement first before I hit the sleeve circumference measurement. So that's what I focused on. That's what I did my knitting math. And basically when I did my knitting math, I was looking at, okay, I have 17 stitches per 4 inches. How many stitches do I need to get the circumference here for my sleeve? That would tell me approximately how many sleeve stitches I need, although you needed to take into account the fact that you were going to be picking up stitches under the arm as well, so you could add that number into the sleeve stitch count and add that measurement in as well. And also, how many stitches am I going to end up with around the bust to make sure I get at least a 0 inches positive ease bust circumference, if not a couple inches more. And if you don't know how to do that math, I would start by just saying it's pretty simple, just proportion math. If you have 17 stitches per 4 inches, how many stitches are you going to need to get to, for example, a 40-inch bust? You can figure that out with proportions. And that's like the basics of, I think, the very basic knitting math that you would need in order to figure out some of this stuff. So that's what I ended up doing. My original thought was I was going to make a size 3. It ended up being closer to the size 4 with the stitch counts that I ended up with. I did mess up some things and not fully follow the pattern. In some cases, I didn't realize that the raglan increases because I didn't fully read the pattern. You should always fully read the pattern first. But I didn't realize that you don't like increase every other round. For some sizes, you're increasing every round instead. You have to read the pattern to figure that part out. But that's where we ended up. So we ended up with obviously sleeves that fit and a body circumference that fits. And yeah, so let's talk about blocking. I'll put up a photo here of what this looked like pre-blocking versus what it looks like now post-blocking, because there is a slight difference. So I mentioned that this yarn that I used was the Silk DK. It's 50% superwash merino, 50% silk, and so I was not 100% sure how this would block out. This was my first time actually using a blend like this with silk and this yarn specifically, so I knew that because of the merino there would be some of those properties similar to like all of the other sweaters that I've blocked before, but I wasn't quite sure how the silk was going to react. I'm really happy to say that I think it blocked out beautifully. I mean, you can see all of the lace, all of the, you know, yarn over eyelet stitches really opened up. I think the neckline is like a little bit wider. I've got a little bit more room in the arms, and I got a little bit more just general length and width. You can see in the photos there's a good like 3.5 inches of twisted rib at the bottom of this sweater, and that really like opened up and lengthened a little bit as well, which was nice because it was a little bit like tight pre-blocking. So I did take measurements because I think I really wanted to see like how this yarn was going to grow, and so that's why I took the measurements. But pre-blocking, the length of my sweater measured from the underarm down was 10 inches and the width was 20 inches. You multiply that by 2, it was a 40-inch circumference. And post-blocking, so after the wash and the block, the length from the underarm was 10.5 inches, so I gained half an inch, and the width ended up being 21 inches, so times 2 is 42 inches, which leaves me with 2 inches of positive ease overall. Very different from the 10 to 12 inches recommended in the pattern, but for a like summer top knit in DK weight, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it fits really nicely, and I love it. So for the yarn, just the amount that I used, I had 3 skeins of this, so the yarn in general was 231 yards per 100 grams. And so total I had 725 yards, 314 grams. You should always weigh your cakes after you wind up your yarn, because I bet you it's over 100 grams. I've been doing this recently for like most of my works in progress, and pretty much every skein of yarn that I weigh is like 104 grams, 105 grams, all the way up to like 110 grams, 110 grams. And so I use proportion math to figure out how many yards I actually have based on what's on the yarn label. So if it says 231 yards per 100 grams, but you have 105 grams, let's say, you can figure out how many yards you actually have in that one skein of yarn. So all of that to say, I ended up with this much left over. This is a third of a skein. It ended up being 33 grams exactly. So in total, I used 650 yards, 280 grams for this size sweater. Yay! Okay, so some overall thoughts. The construction of this was pretty fun, but it starts off with, there's actually 2 different options for a neckline. It says in the pattern you can do a like smaller, closer fitting neckline, or you can do a wider neckline. I am pretty much always at this point of the opinion that I would like a smaller neckline. I don't like when it's super wide and you can see anything, you know, underneath. So I went with the smaller neckline. However, the smaller neckline means that you have to do a provisional cast on with waste yarn. And as much as I hate a provisional cast on, I feel like the setup rows are just like annoying and a waste of time. I really wanted the smaller neckline more than I didn't want to do the provisional cast on. So I did it. I did the provisional cast on, okay? It turned out great. Yeah, it really turned out great. You've got some twisted rib. It's interesting though because like the provisional cast on, like it really looks like regular ribbing, but then you go into the twisted rib, and so there's a, you know, slight disconnect between, you know, a normal rib, like 1 or 2 stitches, kind of what it looks like, into the twisted rib, but like nobody's looking at the very top of your neckline. You've got a whole sweater with this like beautiful lace. Nobody's looking right here. So that's what I keep telling myself. There are short rows in this pattern, so the main short rows are in the back, but there are also short rows in the front. Now, you may be looking at my sweater. I don't know if you can tell. It's kind of obvious, but like I don't think anyone will really be able to tell. This is the front short row section right here. How did it end up so, like, here's the center of my sweater. Oh, I'm gonna scoot back again for the light. Here's the center of my sweater, and here's like the center of the short rows. I have no idea what happened. I don't know if I counted wrong. I'm guessing that's what happened. I'm guessing it's not an issue with the actual pattern. I must have just counted something wrong, whether it was in like my short row stitches, or maybe I placed the raglan wrong and I like twisted the whole yoke. I don't even know. It's pretty funny, but it's not that big of a deal. I do think it kind of makes like this side of my sweater like a little bit bigger. I don't know. This yarn is pretty like stretchy, and like I can kind of just put it in place where it needs to be, and then it's fine. Nobody will really notice, except for all of you now that I've told you. So that's that. The yarn in general, the Silk DK, is very silky, soft, and smooth. The only thing I would say is it does snag pretty easily, so take your finished object photos before you let your dogs just like claw your sleeves. I did have a couple like strands on it, but I did just like use a pen and like tucked them into the back so that you couldn't see them. So I think that's just the nature of like the silk merino yarn, so I don't think it's going to end up being a huge problem, but as I wear this more at some point I'll definitely let you know. I do wish I had made this a little bit longer. I wore this yesterday to work and I just kept feeling like I needed to pull it down. I did wear a white t-shirt underneath, tank top, and I had that like tucked into my pants, so at least I knew I wasn't like exposing any of my skin to the workplace. But just for like my own, I think, don't get me wrong, I think the length right now is very, very cute. I am not used to wearing like cropped shirts that are like tight, and as you know, as soon as I raise my arms, like the whole bottom of the sweater kind of comes up. That's just something that I'm not used to and like not super comfortable with, but I do think the length of where it's at right now is cute. I would have preferred though at least 1 or 2 more inches just to be more comfortable while wearing this at work, so for more like work appropriateness. And overall, like, I would make this again. I can see why there are so many projects on Ravelry. Like, this ended up being a really, really, number one, fast make. I knit this in 10 days. Like, start to finish, knit this in 10 days. There were actually like 1 or 2 days that I didn't knit at all, like in there, so I could have made it even faster. But this yoke, the lace part, 2 days. And then you're just like, you have very large circumference knitting on 6mm needles that takes you like no time at all. The sleeves obviously are short sleeves, so that shortens the time as well. Another piece that I will mention, I forgot to put this in my notes, I gotta go back and add this to Ravelry. The sleeves in the pattern, it's recommended that you do an I-cord bind off, especially, well, there's actually a couple things. So if you do the long sleeve, it recommends an I-cord bind off. The like short sleeve in the pattern, it actually wants you to just like end it and do an I-cord bind off like right when you finish the raglan increases. I knew for me that wasn't going to be long enough. I wasn't going to be comfortable with that. I like to have a little bit more of my arm covered, just like in short sleeves. So it does tell you in the pattern that if you want the sleeves to be longer than what's recommended, follow the instructions for the long sleeve and then just end it and do the I-cord bind off where you want it to end. I do like an I-cord bind off. I think it has its time and its place, but with this twisted rib, the 3 inches of twisted rib at the bottom, I just felt like we needed to add twisted rib on the sleeves also. So I did like 8 rows. I think it's like 1 inch of twisted rib just to match this, and I think it turned out great. I really like it. I just think it would have looked a little bit unbalanced with an I-cord edge on the sleeve. So, but I was saying I would make this pattern again. I do think this would be really fun to have in a long sleeve for fall and winter. I think at that point, like, an I-cord cuff here would be really nice. I think with like, I would say like with a suri would be nice, but then you would lose all of the lace. So maybe with just like a fingering and a mohair or a DK and a mohair to get a worsted weight, just to like bring that gauge up to get closer to the 14 stitches per 4 inches. Might be good. Or you can get, you know what would be cool is like one of those like blown yarns where it's like super fuzzy. That would be cool too. So I think that's it. I'm looking at my notes. I think that's it. That's the Ranunculus. I posted this on Instagram yesterday, Thursday, and everyone just like went crazy, and like half the people who commented were like, oh my god, I'm gonna cast this on right now, and I was like, yay. Do it. Everyone should go cast one on right now. Make it with less positive ease for the summer. Make it short sleeve. Well, for the spring, we're in spring. This was, really excited to say, this was the first sweater that I said I was going to knit in my spring knitting video, and I have knit it. It's done. So check that off the list. Yes. All right. The second sweater that I said I was going to knit was the Provence sweater by Sorella Yarn for the Sorella Yarn make along with the Sorella Yarn Suri Alpaca, and I swatched for this, but I have not cast it on yet, and I did cast on something else first, but let me just show you the swatch so I can show you that I've made progress. But here's my swatch. Doesn't it look, it looks nice, right? So I actually have the Suri sock base. The pattern recommends the Suri lace, which is a lace weight versus a sock weight or a fingering weight. It recommends the lace weight held double. So I figured since I have the sock, the fingering weight, I would hold it single. I would see if it was okay, and I always go back to gauge. So the recommended gauge is 16 stitches per 4 inches. My swatch here is 18 stitches per 4 inches. So I think when I actually knit this up, I've been finding recently that my swatch gauges are slightly different than what my final gauge actually ends up being. So I think my final gauge will likely end up probably closer to the 17 or 16 stitches per 4 inches. So that's fine. And I did have to go up a needle size, so it's recommended that you knit that on a 4.5 millimeter needle. I went up to a 5 millimeter needle, and I will probably stick with that for the garment. I had my swatch that I had knit, I blocked it in my sink, and I had this blocking on the blocking boards with my Ranunculus, and then I left on Tuesday. I did that all on Monday. I left on Tuesday to go to work in the office, and I came home, and this is what my swatch looked like. I don't know if you can tell. It's totally chewed up. This is like totally like felted and chewed up. My dog ate my swatch. I'm pretty sure it was Lillipup. Could have been Rocky, but I'm pretty sure it was Lillipup. So thankfully I was able to come home and like get a little bit of a measurement with what was left here. But you know, it's fine. It'll be fine. I just thought it was so funny. I was like trying to measure this, and I was like, there's like actually just like broken yarn here and like a chunk missing out of it. So I guess I was trying not to like pin it down because I didn't want to like mess up the stitches, but I guess I'm gonna have to put some sort of pin in it next time because I can't believe she did that to me. She ate my swatch. Anyways, that's going to get cast on next. It wasn't the next cast on after the Ranunculus because something unexpected came up and happened. I applied for a test knit and was chosen to do the test knit the next day. So that jumped to the top of my priority list. I am test knitting. Let me make sure I get this all correct because it's important. I am test knitting the Helianthus tank, designed by Andrea, oh my gosh, Gaughan? Maybe. I'm not sure. But it's this like really cute tank top. You can do a solid version or a striped version. The yarn that is recommended in the pattern is Ritual Dyes Undine, which is a cotton linen blend. I was going to use that yarn, and then I realized I have some linen in my stash that I think would make a really, really cute striped top. So you may remember this. I've shown this on the podcast before, but this is what I'm going to use. So this is Quince & Co. Sparrow, which is 100% organic linen yarn, and I've got 3 colors here. So the white is called Lunar, the orangey red is called Paprika, and the purple is called Viburnum. I got this from Apricot Yarn and Supply down in San Diego in Liberty Station with the original purpose of using these for a Moon Crush tank by Jacqueline Cieslak. And I had swatched for it last summer, and I was just like not super into using the linen at that point. I was like, this is gonna be like tough. That top is knit in panels and then seamed, so it was a lot of like knitting and purling and knitting and purling. And I just like knew that I didn't really want to purl a lot with this yarn. So I put it away. And when I got this test knit, I was like, oh, I actually think this might be perfect. So I talked to Andrea and she was like, yeah, it sounds great. So I swatched again. I know they look the same, but they're different. I swatched again. It's coming out great. Let me go to my notes again. Let's see, this is a fingering weight tank top pattern. So the recommended gauge is 28 stitches per 4 inches on 3.25 millimeter needles. My swatch ended up 26 stitches per 4 inches on 3.25 millimeter needles. So I'm gonna stick with that. Somehow my gauge ended up larger. I think it's the linen. I don't know, it just has different properties than wool. So I'm actually glad that my gauge is a little bit bigger. And the sizing recommended in the pattern, so it is recommended to have 0 to 2 inches of negative ease. It's really supposed to be form-fitting and like stretch over your bust. So I'm choosing to knit the size D, which is a 42-inch bust. Let me tell you more about the specs of the pattern, the sizing. So the pattern is graded to 10 sizes, A through J, to fit a body with the upper chest measurement. On the schematic. Okay, so to fit body measurements of 30 inches up to 66 inches, which is 75 centimeters to 165 centimeters. So this is very size inclusive, which is something that I really liked. And again, 0 to 2 inches of negative ease is what's recommended. I chose size D, which is a 42-inch circumference, which is actually 2 inches of positive ease for me. But this linen, does not, this has not very much stretch to it. There's a little bit, but I was just really worried with it not stretching, and if I made it with too much negative ease, like 2 inches of negative ease, I was worried that I'd like just like wouldn't be able to get it on. Anyways, I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be okay. I'm not like too worried. Anyways, it is a bottom up knit, and you cast on with your ribbing needle, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle. You have to do an inch of twisted rib. So it's a little daunting to start out with, okay? But I have cast it on. It's gonna fit. I know it kind of looks like big here, but like I said, the linen like really doesn't, you know how wool, this would like cinch together with wool and look smaller than it actually is. It doesn't do that with linen. So I need to measure this again. I think I'm at 1 inch. I may need to do one more round, but I'd really love to not do one more round. And is that the right side? Oh my gosh, I'm showing you the wrong side. What is happening here? There we go. It's twisted rib, so you gotta see the twisted rib side. There we go. Which is gonna look really good. It's just kind of like, it's a difficult starting point to start with over 250 stitches to cast on, going into twisted rib on 2.75 millimeter needles. Like, these are the needles that I bought to knit socks. Not a tank top. But anyways, once I get into the stockinette section, it's gonna go way faster. And yeah, I'm just really excited to stripe these colors. I think I was so proud of myself when I picked these out because I just think they're perfect. This was like one of the first ones that I picked, and then I saw this one and I was like, man, I love both of these colors individually. And then at the shop they were like, well, why don't you just pick like a neutral white to go in the middle? And I was like, this is perfect. So here we go. This is my Helianthus tank test knit. And I'm hoping that next time you see this, I'm not gonna like expect this to be done, you know, in 10 days like this did. It's fingering weight yarn. But I am hoping it will take not that much time. So when I see you again in 2 weeks for a regular podcast episode, I'm hoping there will be a good amount of work done on this. So yay. Yay. Okay, let me quickly show you where I'm at with my Musselburgh, because I have made some progress on this. Here we go. This is the Musselburgh hat by Ysolda Teague, and the yarn that I'm using is Silly Goose Yarns in her fingering weight base in the colorway Bubblegum. And it's super cute. I love the hot pink. I'm trying to find, oh, here's my marker. I think this was from the last podcast episode right here, so I've probably done like ½ an inch. I had to take the needles, so the tank top, I had to steal the needles from my Musselburgh to knit the tank top, so I haven't made as much progress on this because I was really trying to focus on this, like that twisted rib. I cast this on, I didn't write down the date, but I cast this on, I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, so this has taken me like 4 days to do this twisted rib, like 10 rounds of twisted rib, just because it's on such small needles. And it's linen yarn, so it's like just like a little bit slower than this soft wool. Anyways, I had to take the needles from this, so there hasn't been as much progress on this, but I am really happy with the progress that I am making. I thought this would take me way longer, but it's going good. And I'm like, you can really see the variegation on the video. It's not that like dramatic in person, although like you can see it in person. I just think it looks really cool. So just chugging away with my hot pink yarn. What's happening? It's unraveling. And the project is at a big enough point where I can just put the yarn inside of it. It's like its own little bag, so it's fun. Did I say that on last week's episode? I probably did. Embarrassing. Okay. Eek. That is all of my knitting that I have for you. So the next thing that I need to cast on, I don't need to. Look, I don't need to cast on the Provence sweater, but I really want to participate in the Sewrella make-along, so I would like to cast that on. I think as soon as I determine that I've finished the hem on the tank top, I'll go ahead and cast it on, because I would like to start posting on Instagram to get entered into the make-along, so that I can be entered to win prizes, basically. That's what I want. And I do think it's like a really cute sweater. I don't know how much I'll be able to wear it once it's done because of the weather changing and getting a lot warmer here in Southern California, but then it'll be done for next fall and winter, so that's good. Okay, after that, the next pattern from my spring knitting video that I want to cast on is the Seasons cardigan. So I think I showed you in one of the last episodes that I ordered yarn from Knitting for Olive, their heavy merino, in order to cast on the Seasons cardigan by Ysolda. When I first got this yarn, I wasn't happy with the color. Basically, I thought this was the original color that I ordered. It's called Mushroom Rose, and it's just way more like beigey, tan, brown compared to what I thought it was. I thought it was a little bit more like leaning towards white is how it looked on the website. And I don't think this would be a bad color on me, but it wasn't what I was expecting. So I have 12 balls of this. I got 12 balls added to my stash. I am going to keep this because I do think this could make a nice pullover. So hopefully towards the end of the year I can cast this on maybe in another Ysolda pattern, or maybe a Kadri pattern, a pullover. They both have a good number of like worsted weight patterns that I think this could really work for. So I did buy more yarn in a color that I thought would be better, and I'll just say I am more interested in this color. It's not exactly what I was hoping for, but we're gonna go with it. So I ended up buying, this is the oatmeal color. So it's less like beigey brown and more, I would say this leans a little bit more gray. So let's get the light back. Every time I do that, I like lose the good light that I have. So you can kind of see if I put these together, definitely more brown, definitely more gray. And I do think, yeah, the gray, this is more what I was leaning towards. So now I have 12 balls of this to eventually cast on my Seasons cardigan. Now, as much as I would love to cast this on right now, I just don't have the bandwidth to do that, especially with a test knit that needs a deadline. I am very much like a one project at a time person. I realized that last summer, actually, when I knit my souffle tee, I knit that like so fast, and I was like, why haven't I been doing more like one at a time? And ever since then, I've really just like gotten into a rhythm of like one main project and like one side project, like a hat or something. So as much as I want to cast this on, I am talking about casting on a second sweater with this to participate in the mal, so I'm gonna need to finish, like, honestly probably both of these before I can cast this on, just before I feel like I have the bandwidth like in my brain to be able to cast this on. So, but the yarn's here, so that's another 12 balls added to my stash, total of 24 here added to my stash. And we're not done for the month of April in adding yarn to my stash. So I have a really, just like, honestly, I can't believe it, fun story to tell you. So a couple weeks ago, a yarn dyer named Tyler from Arcane Fiberworks reached out to me on Instagram and asked if I would be interested in trying out some of his yarn, no strings attached. Basically, you don't have to post anything about it if you don't want to, but I want to send you yarn. And I was just like, me? You want to send me yarn? Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much. So I went on to his Instagram and I sent him the names of 2 colors that I was interested in, thinking he would send me 1. I asked for a sweater quantity, 6 skeins of DK. Again, I only thought it would be 1. He sent me, let me just show you the bag this all came in. This is more than 6 skeins of yarn, right? We can clearly see that, okay? He sent me 3 sweater quantities of yarn. That's 18 skeins of yarn. So, Tyler, thank you. And I dumped all of this out and I was like, I recognize these 2 as the 2 colors that I was interested in. And there's this 3rd color that I didn't see on your Instagram, but this is actually the one that I'm most interested in now. So just this extra color that he picked out was like perfect for what I like. So let me actually show you these in like the order that I looked at them. And I don't need to hold up all like 18 skeins here, that's gonna be too much, but okay. The first colorway that I was interested in that I saw on his page had like a unicorn photo, and it was called I Don't Believe in Humans. And it actually looked a little bit like less vibrant on Instagram, but this is like super colorful, super fun. You can see all the like purple, blues, peaches. It's really cute. This is DK weight 80/20 merino nylon, so 218 yards per 100 grams. Again, I have 6 skeins of this. I'm thinking I will maybe crochet this into a blanket or knit it into a blanket. I don't know. But I just think this would be a really like sweet blanket color. So I love this. This was the second colorway that I was really interested in, and it had a picture of a seashell, which I love the ocean and seashells, so you grabbed me right away there. Plus it was like mainly pink, and this colorway is called She Sells Seashells. Again, it's on his DK weight 80/20 merino nylon base, and you can see, you know, it's on a base of white, but it's got that pink and like dark blues that almost read kind of gray, and I think this is gorgeous. So I don't know what I'm going to use this for yet. Maybe a sweater, you know, maybe like another classic drop shoulder or classic raglan, but I really like this. It's really fun. And then the third color that was unexpected, look at this. It's very similar to the seashells, but with purple. So it's got purples and blues, and I absolutely love it. I love these dark purples. And this colorway is called Let Your Dreams Blossom. So super pretty. So yeah, I don't know what I did to deserve all of this love. Tyler, if you're watching, thank you. I really appreciate this, and I can't wait to get some of this knit up. So if you're interested, you can go check out Tyler on Instagram. A couple more updates. So I think last week I talked about Twice Sheared Sheep, and I showed you their surprise box. The surprise boxes went back on sale about a week ago, last Friday, and there are actually still boxes available. They expected them to sell out right away, but there are still boxes available. So if you're interested in checking out or purchasing the Twice Sheared Sheep surprise box, you can head to the link down in the description box below. It is an affiliate link, so I get a small commission from any purchases made through that link at no extra cost to you, and I really appreciate it whenever you purchase anything through one of my affiliate links. So thank you. If you are interested, you would be purchasing the summer and the fall surprise boxes, and I can tell you just from like opening the spring box, there were a lot of goodies in there and it was really fun. And I am most excited for the summer box because the theme is like pool party basically, and I love summer stuff. Summer is my favorite season, and so I'm really excited for all the like pool / summer themed charms and artwork. So yay, that's fun. What else is coming up? Oh, the raglan comparison video. I know you guys have been waiting for this since like January, December. It is finally coming next week. I'm going to be working on it this weekend and putting it all together for you for next week. So get excited for that. I also have a couple other like non-podcast videos that I'm really excited to bring you this month and next month. And I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a comment down below if there was something that caught your eye or that you'd really like to let me know about today's video. Again, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye!